It's like I went from being, as I say, ovulating Yeti woman to Venus de Milo with an embarrassment of arms. Welcome to Grumpy Old Crone with me, Annie, and I'm here to whinge at you for the next chunk of time about, well, anything that really occurs to me at the time, actually. So yes, I apologise in advance. It's Friday night, so I am slightly drinky old crone as well tonight, but I don't know whether this will improve things or make them worse. Who knows? We'll find out together. It's a journey. So thank you for joining me on this mad wine-fueled journey. And I'd like to say thank you to everybody who has subscribed, liked, commented, and come along with me so far. I'm having a blast. I'm really enjoying meeting all you new people. So please continue, share, like, comment, all of that jazz. It's brilliant. Thank you. So today, I'm going to slip straight into my. I feel I need to explain that the witchy makeup tip that I give at the beginning of every video is not real. I don't actually wear much in the way of makeup at all, and I don't actually care about it at all. Last week's witchy tip was the best one, in which I said that wear it if you want, don't if you don't. I don't actually care, and that is in fact the only valid witchy makeup tip there is. But I'm going to continue giving them to you, stupid tips, because why not. So this one is going out to all of the crones out there. I feel you. I too am in my crone years. I'm very grateful to be here, actually. So first of all, I want to bring up that no longer taboo topic. It was a taboo when I was younger. We weren't really allowed to talk about periods and menstruation and all that kind of jazz. And in fact, I remember my mother telling me when I was a teenager and just starting out on that part of my life that if I had to change my pads or my Tampax, then I had to hide them up my sleeve when I went to the bathroom, because we didn't want either of my brothers or my father seeing them, because they would have been, I don't know, shocked, horrified, the heads might have fallen off, I don't know. And I don't think I was unusual in this. I think this was kind of like a generational thing, which led in turn to an awful lot of men of my generation and the prior generations having absolutely no fucking clue what was happening to their wives, daughters, sisters, mothers, aunts, nieces, co-workers, friends for, like 40 years of their life. Not a clue. Not a clue. And can I just say that's very damaging and completely pointless. So I'm glad that we're not there anymore, and I'm glad that the next generation is finding it a little bit easier to talk about this stuff. Because, if we're cranky once a month, then, it helps all of those other people who might not be menstruating to understand that. So, yeah, there we go. That's it. So I'm glad that we're talking about that now. However, I will point out that there is another great informational gap, and that informational gap is the menopause. Okay, nobody talks about it. We know it happens. It's like the great undiscovered country. If you're unlucky enough to not have older friends or older family members who are prepared to talk to you about this, it comes as somewhat of a surprise. You don't just stop having periods one day and whoo, everything's fine. No. Maybe we'll talk about this in greater detail another time. But right now, just know that if this is not a thing that's happened in your life, then no, it's not that simple. Your body goes bonkers. Okay? And this is kind of where I would like to bring in this witchy aesthetic tip for today. Because nobody told me this, and it came as, frankly, a huge surprise. Now, having spent the majority of my younger life as some kind of, like mad ovulating Yeti woman, it came as a huge surprise to me that after you've had the menopause, you grow less hair in all the places that you have spent the previous 40 years attempting to remove hair from. All of a sudden, it's just not there. I mean, it might grow a little bit, but it's quite pale, it's quite wispy. Sometimes there's none. It's like I went from being, as I say, ovulating Yeti woman to Venus de Milo with an embarrassment of arms. And a weight problem, obviously, but yeah, nobody told me. That's the thing. However, I will say, if you feel the urge to throw away your razors, which you should, embrace that shit. Throw away the razors. Do instead trade them in for a pair of tweezers, because you might notice that all those arms that aren't hairs, arms. I'm back to the Venus de Milo, aren't I? All of the hairs that aren't growing on your legs, under your arms, yeah, they're all fucking growing on your chin. So tweezers. Invest in a good pair of tweezers. That's it. That's my menopause aesthetic tip for today. And now it's time for another little drink. Whilst underneath, I'm going to give you the meat and 2 potatoes of today's stuff. That's better. Right. So today I want to talk to you about fairies. I've got so many opinions, but really only like half an hour, 35 minutes to talk about it, or else you're all going to run away, I can just tell. So yeah, I grew up in the time of Cicely, Mary Barker, and all of the flower fairies, and they were all wearing like little bluebell dresses, and we oohed and we ahed over the undebunked Cottingley fairy. When I was young, we actually thought the Cottingley fairy photos were real. I swear to you, we did. So yeah, that's the thing. Arthur Conan Doyle believed in them, so obviously the man who invented Sherlock Holmes had to be right. So, and if they weren't like little fairy ladies dancing around like this, then obviously they were middle-aged, matronly, tiny women with wands and hair scarves, giving people lovely dresses and pumpkin coaches. That's what fairies were. And then I grew up. And I started reading a lot more widely, and reaching back into mythology and folklore, and rooting my practice, my witch practice, into the land where I lived. And I'm an East Anglia girl. That's where I grew up. I kind of moved a few miles north and a few miles west, but at the heart of it, I'm still an East Anglia girl. You can't take that out of me. And so, despite the fact that I'm up here, I've still got that mythological root that says that fairies are not fluttery little girls in pretty dresses. So, up until the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, give or take, there was a pretty universal acceptance and belief in the Fae as the Fae. It was difficult to distinguish them from what the Christian church might have seen as a demonic influence, but there was certainly a lot of evidence of belief in otherworldly creatures that didn't have material bodies in the same way that we do, and had goals and realities that were very different to ours, and most importantly, whose goals and aims did not intersect with ours at all. But when they chose to materialise, you had better respect them. That's the huge takeaway. So they could come in 100 million different forms. They could be tall, they could be small, they could look like pretty little fairies with wings, as we would think of them now, but they could also look like huge black horses with glowing red eyes. They could look like the Banshee of Islands. They could look like Nixie. They could look like Jenny Greenteeth. They could look they could look like anything, and most of the time they were just terrifying. Just terrifying. They existed in a liminality, in the edge places. Certainly here where I live, the existence of what was referred to as the Tiddyman, or the small man and the small people, was seen to be a thing right up until the end of the 19th and the beginning of the 20th century. And that's, that's very easily within living memory now. And it's certainly at the point at which these tales were collected, my mum was still alive. She wasn't in this part of the country, but the East Anglia part where my mum came from had their own tales. So, but they were still there. So the Tiddyman up here, round in the Fenlands and the Boglands, that were drained by Dutch immigrants in the 17th century, they were seen as completely ambivalent to humans, but very annoyed at having the wetlands drained. And there was a certain element of having to... Oh, big clonk, that's my husband, apologies for that. We would have to placate them, we would have to give offerings, we would have to apologise to them for anything that we did that might influence them. The Bogland spirits that were placated were being referred to as the Yarthies, right up until, I believe, 1955 was the last time a living story was collected of them. So people just lived a lot more closely with the land then, and the Yarthies were... Yeah, they needed to be placated, and they were placated with the best of the crops, given on special flat offering stones that were smeared with blood of slaughtered animals. Now, you tell me that's not pagan. Now, the tradition of fairies and spirits were also very common as house spirits as well. I first came across them as part of Ukrainian traditions. So we've got the domovoi. And because I'm half Welsh, it took very little research to find out that this was a really strong tradition for that part of my family as well. Only then they were called the bubach, but it's the same thing, that house spirits that came and lived. And English people might call them brownies, but they're the same sort of thing. They live in your house. So that was a thing that really resonated with me, and so I have made that a really regular part of my practice. I offer regular gifts of food and drink and incense to my bubach. I refer to him as grandfather, because I kind of feel that stern kind of oversight of house and family is kind of where my bubach sits in my practice. So maybe some people would see that as a demon. I have invited something otherworldly into my house. Maybe some people will see it as a ghost, because I can see him. And maybe people will see it in different ways, with different traditions that they lay on the top of it. I see him as the kindly grandfather that looks over the well-being of my home and my family. His goodwill and protection is something that is vital to my household. Since inviting him in, I have found that my garden grows better, my bread rises more quickly, my fire lights the first time I try it, small items don't get lost in the same way, and things don't break. Sometimes things just mend spontaneously, which sounds weird, but anybody who knows me will know that in the last 3-4 months I've had 2 major appliance breakages. First of all, my washer dryer, which is, quite an expensive piece of equipment, and my cooker, both stopped working, and inexplicably both started working again. One of them after an electrician had come out and said that it needed a whole new part and couldn't be fixed, and the next day it just started working again. Make of it what you will. I don't know. So I think the important thing is that I know I have a bubach, or a domovoy, however you care to refer to him, and I'm very grateful that he's here. He's a vital part of my house. I give him food, I give him drink, I give him incense, I include him in my rituals. I respect him. I see him. I do see him. It's never completely. It's, as you sit down, you see something move out of the corner of your eye, and you think, oh, it's one of the cats, and then you realise both cats are sat with you. That's my bubach. He's there. So, but I don't think it's scary. I feel very loved and looked after and cared for. But because he is a fairy, really important, don't ever fucking thank them. Do some research on your fairy lore. You never thank them. They creating an obligation from one side of that relationship to the other always ends badly. But the really important thing to take away from this is that fae and fairy are there and do exist, and they are not little girls in fluttery bluebell dresses. They just don't underestimate them. Don't underestimate them. Don't discount them. They don't appreciate being seen like little sparkly creatures. It drives me insane. What we see now as fairies, that kind of concept of Tinkerbell with her hair in a little bun and a little petally dress, and then we'll put on tutus and give our children little wands and fairy crowns and stick on wings, and we'll say, oh, you're going to be a fairy, you're so pretty, blah 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 blah. No, don't offer your child to the fairy. That's a very, very bad idea. Okay, the fae like to steal our children and replace them with things that are not quite our children. Okay, there is an argument that I've heard, it's quite a compelling argument, that this was an early explanation for autism, that a child would suddenly change one day, and what we would now know is that a child has undergone a change within their brain chemistry or whatever, that means that a latent autism within them suddenly manifests. Is a really good argument, apart from the fact that that sort of thing tends to manifest around about the 18-month or so period. It's newborn babies that fairies steal, and then they leave something that's not quite a newborn baby. And if you're a mother and you've ever looked in a crib and wondered, is that really my child? That feeling of being slightly disjointed, that's really disturbing. Don't invite it in. Don't put your child in a multicoloured tutu and give it a plastic wand and say, huzzah, now we're going to play at fairies. Just don't do it. Oh, my love. If you are sitting there going, oh, what a stupid woman she is, drinking her wine, which is a very nice wine, a Pinot Grigio, drinking her wine, telling me that fairies exist, I will say to you, try going out into the woods on a Sabbath, try Samhain, and sitting in the woods at night on your own, all alone, shouting, all fairies are bastards. You try that and see how comfortable you feel. See whether you don't feel that maybe something is watching you and judging you at that point. Because I've got to tell you, I've spent some time in woods at night, and I certainly wouldn't bloody do it. That's just very, very disturbing. So if you want to go to a fairy festival, and why not? They're lovely things. I've been to several myself and thoroughly enjoy them. But why don't you try to not buy into the whole fluttery, glittery, sparkly bollocks? Okay, how about dressing as something nature spirit? If you want some visual inspiration, then I suggest going to your library and checking out any book by Brian Froud. Any book by Brian Froud. Or try watching any films in which he's been involved. Okay? That will give you an idea. Now, here is a man who actually sees fairy and portrays what he sees on paper. Many of them are beautiful. Many of them are lovely. Some of them are really fucking disturbing. And if you want to invite that into your house, great. I don't. I am very careful about what I invite into my house, how I honour it, and making sure that it knows that I respect it and when the appropriate time to leave is. I recommend you do the same. So, now we're going to get on to my lovely new jingle, which has only been out once, so now it's the next time. Here comes the Postiive Bit. Right. So what I'm going to do today is tell you how to get your own Domovoy Bubach house brownie. Okay, how to invite a little bit of that enchantment and spiritual connection into your home. Okay, so the first thing you need to do is to find a home for your, let's call it a brownie. We'll call it a brownie for now. Oh no, that might be confusing in case you've got any school age daughters. We'll go back to Bubach. I like Bubach. So first of all, what you need is a home for your Bubach. Now, I have a little wooden statue that my son carved for me, and that is where my Bubach resides. You might have some kind of little fairy house or a shell, something for the spirit to anchor itself into your house. And then you should place that in the heart of your house, whatever you consider to be the heart of your house. For me, it's my hearth where I have my fire. So my Bubach lives on my mantelpiece just above my fire, and has a little offering bowl in front of him. His is a tiny tea cup and saucer that I was given by a lovely lady that I met once in Seattle. So that's his little offering thing in front of him. So once you've got a home for your Bubach and you've got a little offering bowl in front of them and you've got it in the heart of your home, it might be an altar, it might be a hearth, it might be your kitchen, whatever you feel is spiritually the centre of your home, that's where he needs to be. And then you need to invite him into your home. Now, I have feelings about rhyming couplets. I get the feeling that Doreen Valiente would not have liked me very much. So I hate all that oldie worldy Englishy, and now we shall speak in rhyming couplets, blah 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 uplets kind of bollocks. I hate all of that. And I think if you're going to attract a Bubach that's going to work for you, then you need to talk to him in your own language. Now I'm using him. Your Bubach is pretty gender neutral, but because they're very often pictured with beards, I'm using the male gender here, but either works. Any works, to be honest. So you call him using language of your own. Now, I am not going to give you an example of how to call your Bubach because I don't want to call another one and piss mine off. Because that sends a really clear message, doesn't it? You know, I'm going to call another Bubach. He doesn't understand about YouTube, so I'm not going to call another one and piss him off, because that would be a very, very bad idea. But just, you know, use your normal language and invite out of nowhere for this spirit to come and live in this lovely thing that you've prepared, so that you can give them offerings, and you'll live happily ever after, and won't that be jolly, and hurrah. That's kind of what you need to do. It in your own language, do it in your own words. It doesn't have to be fancy, it just has to be understandable in whatever language is comfortable for you. If you happen to have Ukrainian heritage, then, you know, by all means call a domovoi in Ukrainian. I can't help but think that would be an amazing thing. I am neither Ukrainian nor a Ukrainian speaker, so that wasn't me. So yeah, whatever works for you. So having invited your Bubach in, you have to assume that he's arrived, and then you have to give him an offering. So I like a little bit of whatever I'm eating at the time. So very often it's the corner of my sandwich, or a little bit of my tea. I might save him a bit of my wine later, go down and give him a little bit of wine. Fruit loaf, dried fruit. They seem to be very fond of dried fruit. And it's another one of these things that you will put the offering out. Obviously it's not going to disappear, because that's not, they're a spirit, they don't have actual stomachs, so it's the concept of offering something. Tobacco, that's a good one as well, or like an incense stick, wave that around so they can enjoy the smell, also good. So make your offering, put it into the little offering cup in front of them, say something along the lines of, you know, here's a little bit of my apple, croissant, Pinot Grigio, whatever, you know, I thought you might like it, yeah, I'm having some as well, and it's very nice. I'm glad you're here. Never say thank you. Really important. You don't want to feel that you're obliged to the Bubach, or that the Bubach is obliged to you. You just don't. That's a very, very bad idea. And I tend to make an offering once or twice a week. I'll often pick up the statue, give it a little cuddle, give it a little kiss, tell it that I'm really glad that he's in my home, and I hope that he enjoys the offering. And that's as much as it needs to go. Occasionally, talk to him. You know, he's living in your house, same as you, any partners, any children, any pets. Your Bubach is there, so just have a chat. You know, when you get in, say, oh, it's good to be home, as you take off your feet. I hope you've had a good day, Bubach. You know, just make that connection. As I've said, I can occasionally see my Bubach. He's small, he's about the size of a cat, maybe a little bit larger, but on 2 feet. Dark shape, runs around. I put a lot of it down to my Welsh heritage. My great grandmother apparently had the sight, and I like to think that passed down to me. I don't know how true it is or not, but it's a nice glamorous little thought. And so yeah, sometimes I see him, and it's always when I'm tired or I'm not paying attention, and then I just see something run past, and I kind of like that. So that's that. How to invite a Bubach into your home, or a domovoi, or a brownie, or a house spirit, whatever you care to call him. He doesn't care what you call him, as long as you call him respectfully. And, you know, pay some respect to the fair folk. They have the ability to influence your life in a very negative way. And just because you live in the middle of the city, don't for an instant think that the Fae aren't watching, because the Fae are always watching. Right, so there we go. That's for today. Thank you very much. And please like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you soon. Bye.